for now, I am thrilled to be joined by Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. Very good to see you this morning, First Minister. Since we're on the royal wedding, did you watch it yesterday?
I saw the end of it. I was busy yesterday. I was attending the opening of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland in Edinburgh, but when I got home I caught the end of it. And, you know, whatever their titles, whatever anybody's views on the royal family or the monarchy happen to be, it's impossible not to feel happy for two people who, you know, when you look at them, they're obviously very much in love. So I wish them well. I
mean, in terms of the image of the whole country, obviously including your country, some people were a bit disappointed that Meghan Markle's mother didn't walk her down the aisle. Was that a disappointment to you?
I think it was her decision. You know, we can all have our own views. I actually thought the fact, I didn't see this part, but the fact that she walked the first part of the walk down the aisle on her own with children, you know, if you're looking for symbols, if you're looking for a proud statement of feminine principle, then I think you can find it there. But these things are very personal. Yes, it was a wedding in the full glare of publicity, but a bride on her wedding day will make decisions based on what feels right to her, and I think Meghan Markle was as entitled to do that as anybody else getting married is.
Now, back to the day-to-day business of politics. The Scottish...
If we must.
I think we probably ought to. The Scottish Parliament has rejected the EU withdrawal bill. What do you see as the significance of that? Is there any way back so that the Scottish Parliament can give approval?
Oh, there is, if the Westminster Government wants to take it. We've set out clearly what that would require, and if the Westminster Government has the will to reach an agreement, then certainly it can be done. You know, this is a debate that I appreciate often sounds very technical, but to put it very simply, there are some powers over farming, fishing, environmental protections, food standards, food labelling, that are, under the current law, devolved to the Scottish Parliament. While we're in the EU, they're influenced at EU level. But this is a debate about what happens after Brexit. The current law says these powers should return to the Scottish Parliament, and if we want to have UK-wide frameworks, which would make sense in some areas, then we do that by agreement. What the UK government wants to do is centralise these powers at Westminster for up to 7 years and have the ability to impose things on Scotland. And why that matters is that it affects things like farming support, for example, or environmental standards or food standards. There's an article in the Observer today about the kind of lowering of food standards that UK governments might embrace to get a trade deal with America. Now, these are things that the Scottish Parliament should be able to decide, but if we sign up to the withdrawal bill as it stands, we will be powerless to stop these kind of things and instead have policies like that imposed on us, and that's neither in line with the devolution settlement, nor is it sensible, in my view, as we look ahead.
I mean, some of your critics have said that you're being disingenuous, that on the one hand you want a single market with the EU, but as a result of wanting these powers, you obviously don't want a single market with the rest of the UK.
Well, that's not the case. I mean, I've just said, and I've said all along, that there will be matters, and this would be true. I think it's important to say, even if when Scotland is an independent country, because of the geography of the UK, there will be areas where, in order to ease trade across these islands, we will want to have common standards and common frameworks. So I don't dispute that at all, and never have done. The question is, how do we arrive at what the content of those frameworks are? My view is it should be by agreement, respecting the powers and responsibilities of the Scottish Parliament or the Welsh Parliament or Northern Ireland for that matter. The UK government wants to have the power to impose the content of these frameworks, and that rides a coach and horses through the 20-year-old devolution settlement. And I don't think, you know, as First Minister, I couldn't in all conscience say to the Scottish Parliament that it should sign up to something that allows our ability in areas that are devolved to be completely obliterated in terms of doing things that we think are right for Scotland's interests.
Your predecessor, Alex Salmond, the other day said that Theresa May's rejection of what you want makes the case for an independence vote sooner rather than later overwhelming. Do you agree with that? And when will you bring this issue of the timing of the vote back onto the agenda?
Well, I've said, and I said this round about this time last year, that once we get some clarity, which hopefully we will in the autumn of this year, about the Brexit outcome and the future relationship between the UK and the EU, then I will consider again this question of the timing of an independence referendum. I'm not going to say more about that in advance of that moment arising. But, of course, over the next couple of weeks, we will, I suppose, restart a debate about why independence for Scotland is an opportunity and what those opportunities are. As you know, we've had a growth commission looking at the economic opportunities of independence. Its report will be published in the coming days. And I think that's quite an important moment, because if you think about the last couple of years in the UK, it's been very much a debate about how we cope with the damage of Brexit. What I think Scotland now has the opportunity to do is look at how we seize the opportunities that lie ahead. So a debate based very much on ambition and hope, not a debate that's based on despair, which is how the Brexit debate so often feels.
We haven't got much time, so a couple of quick questions. We've got Lord Mandelson here, who's very much in favour of the UK getting another referendum on the terms of Brexit. Would you support a call for another vote, another referendum, once we've got the Brexit terms?
Well, look, the SNP won't be the bloc to that. I've made that clear. I think, to be perfectly frank about it, I think Lord Mandelson really needs to do some work with his own party to get them on side before that is even a realistic prospect. But I guess if there is to be another EU referendum, whether on the principle or on the terms of a deal, a big question for Scotland would be what happens if we get the same outcome, where the UK votes to leave as a whole, but Scotland votes to remain, because that's what's happened the last time. It's not a question of the people of Scotland changing their mind. So how do we make sure that Scotland's voice actually gets listened to and respected? So, the SNP is not a bloc to this, but I think there are others who perhaps need convincing.
And very briefly and finally, last week you got a bit of stick, I think even from some of your own supporters, for telling Jamie Oliver you were going to ban buy one, get one free pizza deals. Any regrets about that?
I think the media characterisation of this has been oversimplified, so we'll set out our proposals in detail in the coming weeks. We don't want to make the purchase of food, the weekly shop, more expensive for families. That is absolutely not what I'm interested in doing, but we do want to look at how we reduce promotions and initiatives that actually encourage overconsumption. So this is a difficult area, but it's an important area. Obesity is a big problem, not just in Scotland, but across the UK, further afield. It causes a lot of health issues for people later in life. So just as Scotland has done with alcohol, taking bold measures to try to reduce the harm of alcohol, I think it's time for governments to be bold around obesity as well. But we'll do that with a proper debate, and while I know that the media will always try to simplify things, we'll make sure that that debate looks at all of the complexities, and we'll strive to get it right.
Very lovely talking to you, First Minister. Anything you particularly want to challenge Peter on there?
Well, as I said, it's not the SNP that he has to work on, it's Labour. I absolutely agree that the government is all over the place, hopelessly divided, no longer has the interests of the country at heart. But how do we get the majority in the House of Commons? I think there's a majority there to be had, for example, for staying in the customs union, for staying in the single market. The barrier to some of this just now is the divisions within the Labour Party. So I guess my advice would be, if he can, to try to bring Labour together behind some sensible positions.
Great to talk to you, and I may well be picking up with some of that both with Peter Mandelson, but also with Lord McCluskey, who will be with us. Not Lord McCluskey, God, I've just